Hello everyone, welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and make sure to follow Twitter and join the Discord server in the description down below. Today, I'm going to be talking about why Donald Trump is the absolute clear favorite to win this presidential election. So pretty much, guys, as of right now, we have multiple issues affecting the nation. We have the economy, we have inflation, we have immigration, we have foreign policy. All of these issues, Joe Biden is down, 20 points or more on all of these issues. Basically Ukraine Russia war, that's really pushing a lot of Republicans, independents away from Biden. And funny enough, Israel Hamas is actually even more devastating to Biden than that conflict because Democrats on both sides of the aisle are actually mad. Traditional Democrats are mad because they may lean, a little bit more towards Israel, but a lot of progressives are mad too because Biden seems to support Israel way too much. So Biden, trying to appease both sides on that, is not really getting the support that he needs. And on top of that, the economy, inflation are just absolutely, prices of everything have tripled, doubled at fast food chains, and not just even there, but groceries as a whole have, doubled, tripled in prices depending on what you're looking at, especially eggs and bacon. Those are the two food items that have basically raised in price like the most out of a bunch of different food items you could buy for the average homeowner. And what's going on is that people are saying, "Oh, look, but it's getting better." The metric says that it's getting better, and the stock market's getting better. Yeah, the stock market's getting better because everybody's assets are inflating. Everybody's assets are inflating as all the prices continue to go up. And the housing market, yeah, sure. I mean, people who own property, it's going to be great for them for the short term. It's not going to be good for them if we go into a recession. But for the regular average, young American or the average homeowner, it is not great. And even older voters that, have to pay association fees for housing, that's affecting them too. A lot of people are moving out of big city areas, moving back into, more rural areas. And so that is something interesting that you are seeing there too. And just every single issue does not favor Biden. And not only that, Biden is extremely uncharismatic. I mean, his approval rating is minus 16.4%. It is abysmal as of right now. And so when you look at the map from last election, Donald Trump basically was able to go out there and put on a masterclass performance for being an incumbent. He basically ended up getting, you know, he got 332 electoral votes, but he got 74 million votes in the popular vote, which is the most out of any sitting US president in modern history. Just Biden ended up doing a bit better in his turnout, and Biden was able to barely edge him out despite getting over 80 million votes in the popular vote, which is absolutely insane. And this is the map that Biden was able to achieve. He won Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona by a mere, 40,000 votes when you combine all of these states. So he barely eked out an election. And you got to understand, guys, that if Donald Trump had not had the pandemic, Donald Trump would have probably held on to all of his states from 2016 and picked up Nevada and Nebraska second, and possibly could have even picked off New Hampshire and even basically Minnesota. He probably could have picked those off, and you could have had a 327 to 211 electoral college vote victory. You could have seen New Mexico be in play at the time. Like, you could have seen a lot of things there. And so at the time, Donald Trump was favored towards the end of his presidency to win re-election like he is now, not by the amount that he was before. Everybody was still expecting, a somewhat close victory for Donald Trump, but Biden was able to kind of come in there, utilize the coronavirus as the big healthcare issue. He was able to, stir up sentiments, with the BLM riots. So that, combining with the coronavirus and the deaths that were going on, the country was a way more solemn national environment. And the economy for people really just kind of did bad because the whole country got shut down. So no one was really blaming it on the Democratic Party. It was more technically blaming it on Donald Trump. Funny enough, Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election because of the coronavirus itself. The reason why he lost was because of the economic, downfall you saw with the coronavirus for a short period of time. And yes, of course, it was under his presidency. Voters are going to blame him for it. We did end up recovering for the most part by the end of 2020, but Biden kind of just erased all that. The Keystone Pipeline, when he got rid of that, what happened was all of the gas prices started going up because we started having to buy gas from foreign nations. And then what ends up happening is when gas gets more expensive, people that are, transporting, truck drivers especially, which is one of the basically the highest occupying job that a person without a college degree or a high school degree would take place for the male population. That is the, job that most male people without a high school degree end up taking as their career. And what ends up happening is all of the prices, for the diesel that they have to use to drive the trucks get more expensive. So companies have to raise the prices on food because to export everything is more expensive. And overseas, exporting or things that way is also more expensive now too. So it's all a trickle down effect from that one thing that Biden did. Now, concerned things may not be Biden's fault. I mean, sure, all of it can't be Biden's fault. I mean, we were recovering from a pandemic, but Biden did have a big role in causing a lot of the inflation that we see right now. Printing millions of dollars is also not helping, to that. That's what makes the stock market, look good, is because the basically United States is printing, trillions of dollars. That's what's keeping the stock market afloat. You could also say that the markets are expecting a Trump victory as well. And so, guys, when you look at everything, you look at the polling, you look at the national polling, Trump is ahead by multiple points, in polling. He's ahead by 1.5 points in the national aggregate. And if you look at 2020, guys, he was down 8.4% on election day and only won the election. He lost the popular vote by 4.5. That's a 4-point miss in the popular vote, guys. You saw Biden plus 10 polls. You saw Biden plus 8 polls, Biden plus 5, Biden plus 11, Biden plus 12, 12 here, 11 here. I don't think people understand, how bad the polling was for Donald Trump. People were expecting states like Texas, Florida to be competitive, Iowa, Ohio, all the major, national pundits expected those to be competitive, and they were nowhere near competitive except Florida. But even Donald Trump, according to Florida standards, won that election fairly easily. If you were to average out, 5, 1, 4, 5, so that's, 15, and then you get this plus 3 poll, and you get this poll, that averages out to like around a 4-3, 4-point lead in the aggregate. And so, right now, my current model, I play around with it and I kind of test it out every day and I change a couple things that I feel like would make it more accurate. Right now, Donald Trump is on track to win this election fairly easily. Now, again, another reason why Trump is the favorite is because third party support is going to hemorrhage support from Biden a tremendous amount. If you see, these are all of the safe Republican states, states that vote 15 points or more. Even Texas and Florida are in this column. They have not voted safe for a Republican on the presidential level in years. And if we look at, California, that's still safe. DC is still safe, Maryland, Vermont, Massachusetts, and we can go out there and say, okay, Hawaii is still there, but that's it for the safe Democratic states. And okay, maybe Maine's first, that margin is a plus 24 margin. That district's trending heavily to the left in that state. And so that is it for the safe Republican and Democratic states. You could add Alaska there. Alaska is a state that's voting for Trump by 18, according to my forecast. And if we keep going here, you're going to see really bad signs for Biden. His likely states are Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Illinois, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, and Rhode Island, and the state of New York are all in the likely category. Most of these were either safe or likely states. And actually, all of these were likely states, or actually these were all safe states in the previous election, except for Colorado. So you're seeing a national shift by quite a bit. If you actually look, I ended up putting all of the total votes from 2020 here and the margins each candidate gets, the percentage of each vote, just to kind of play around, what the popular vote would end up looking like based on what I plugged in. And Donald Trump's expected to win the election by 5.6 percentage points, according to this. And you may say, oh, well, that's ridiculous, but not really. If you look at the average, 2.4. And what ended up happening last cycle is you saw a polling error of 2.7%. According to RCP, and here you saw the aggregate underestimate Donald Trump by 4 percentage points. That would be a 3.2 miss against Trump in the polling. That is not unrealistic. And this is the current five-way race, which represents the actual election. A lot of people like to use the one-way aggregate, between Trump and Biden, but that's just not accurate because we do, in fact, have three candidates that are more than likely going to get ballot access in over 25 states nationwide. And so I have to use that aggregate in order to accurately predict this election. And Biden's approval rating is just in the gutter, like we've discussed before. And that just puts him at a terrible spot right now. It puts the national environment at R+5. And you got to understand, he won the popular vote by 4.5 points in 2020 and barely eked it out here. So if he even won the popular vote by 4, he would have probably lost the election. He would have tied and it would have gone to the House of Representatives. But if we look at a state like North Carolina, 12-point victory for Donald Trump as of right now. And not only that, my county by county model, which I will go into in a future video, I have to update those, but that model shows Donald Trump winning the state by 12 with all of the current metrics. He is ahead by 12 points there. If we look at the state of Georgia, he is ahead by 8 points, a state that Biden won. My, county by county model, which tracks every single trend in every county, has the state at around a 6.5 point victory. The victory here is 8.3. If we look at Arizona, he's winning that fairly easily. He's winning that by around 8.1 percentage points. He's winning that fairly easily. If we look at Nevada, he's winning that by 10. The polling has it, the latest poll from there, or I should say one of the latest polls, has the state at around, a 6 point victory, but you did have that plus 13 poll from New York Times / Siena College. That is absolutely, those are insane numbers. And that is the most reputable pollster in the entire country, guys. So it is not looking good for Biden right now. A lot of people say, oh, you're crazy for having Biden losing by this much. Oh my God, this is absolutely bonkers. But if you really look into the data, it's not really that crazy. Virginia is a polling lead in the aggregate. He's leading there by around 3 or 4, and the polls overestimated him in 2020. Biden specifically, if you look at the average, if you were to average this out, he'd be ahead by around like 3 or 4 points. And if we go to 2020, you could see the aggregate overestimated Biden by around almost 2 percentage points there. And if you were to do a polling miss, it would give you a margin similar to this. So it's not that unrealistic. Even Minnesota, the polling aggregate in Minnesota is very competitive. And I'm going to show you guys something. It's going to blow your mind, right? So the aggregate right now has Biden winning it by 2.4%. In 2020, you had the aggregate at 9.2. He ended up winning it by 7.1%. So that's a 2.1 polling miss in favor of Biden. If you were to apply that same polling miss over here to this state, Biden ekes it out by 0.3 percentage points. If you look at my forecast, Donald Trump is projected to win it by 0.4. So it's within reasonable polling, errors from last cycle. Maine second is safe. Maine at large is very competitive. Donald Trump is actually ahead in the aggregate by 3. If you were to average out all the polling there, he's actually ahead by 3 points. So the polling actually overestimates him there according to my model. And the funny part about that is that he actually got underestimated in Maine. He actually got underestimated in the state of Maine, guys. And so that is not a good look for President Biden. New Hampshire is very competitive. The aggregate only has Biden up by 2 points. The polling error from 2020 was a 4-point polling miss in favor of Biden. If you were to shift the aggregate, gives Trump a lean margin of victory, and my model has it as a tilt state for Biden, which makes sense. I expect Maine at large and New Hampshire to trend left compared to the nation. Nebraska's second, as of right now, is a lean margin, but I actually think it's going to be a larger victory than that, considering that the district has been, redesigned, and my forecast does not actually factor that in. And so, luckily, we did get polling data that is kind of skewing the average there. But realistically, guys, this district is going to be leaning more Republican this year. And if we look at the state of New Mexico, we can see Donald Trump is projected to win it by 0.2%, which, thinking about it, makes perfect sense. Biden won the popular vote by 4.5. He won it by 4.5. Biden won that state by 10.8%. And if you were to shift the election, basically 5.6 to 4.5, that's around a 10.1 percentage point shift to the right. And so that would shift the state alone to being a tilt D state. But since New Mexico has a heavy Hispanic population and Trump is performing very well in polling with Hispanic and Black voters, that is taken into account in the demographics portion of my model. And New Mexico is a tilt Republican state for Donald Trump as of right now. So, guys, looking at the data, Biden is in a really bad spot, and Trump may actually be able to win this thing fairly easily. And I'm actually going to test something here. Donald Trump's at 328, Biden's at 210, right? And so let's say, oh, well, let's say third parties don't get a lot of votes. Okay, let's use the, basically the head to head aggregate. Trump's up by 1.1 instead of 2.4. What difference would that make? Well, essentially none. Donald Trump still wins Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin by pretty comfortable margins. He wins all of them fairly easily. The only difference, New Mexico flips back Democrat. Minnesota flips back to being 0.3%, which is the actual polling margin that I had beforehand. Maine at large becomes lean Democrat. Nebraska's second is still lean R, guys. It's still lean R. Iowa, Ohio are still around 18, 19 point wins. Texas, Florida are still big victories. As of right now, Alaska is still over 15. So the only difference that this would have made was basically New Mexico and Minnesota flipping back. And if you look, it gives the 313 electoral college victory to 225 that most people are predicting. But my model, I'm using the 5-way aggregate since that is more accurate to the actual nation. You can see here Donald Trump is winning easily, and he still has a shot of winning Minnesota, New Mexico, New Hampshire, even in a regular, two head-to-head matchup anyway. And so that is basically it, guys. Donald Trump is extremely favored to win this presidential election as of right now. If things change, I will be completely honest. I know a lot of people, we hit 11,000 subscribers today. I know a lot of people like seeing this channel because they see old Trump's winning big, but I'm going purely off the data. If the race does get closer, you guys will start seeing my projection shift slowly but surely. And I'm not doing these, oh, I'm going to predict the election 6 months out. That's literally impossible. No one can do that. That is almost impossible. You can project a winner a couple years back if you're really talented, but to predict every single state, probably not. You basically, the creator of Dilbert in like 2015 predicted Trump was going to beat Hillary, and he was the first person to ever publicly state that Trump would beat Hillary or any Democrat because of the fact that he is a master, persuader that knows how to use like the one-liner nicknames. That was his claim, that he would be able to demolish the Republican field and basically clear Hillary. He actually thought that Trump was going to win in a landslide. That didn't end up happening, but he actually thought Trump was going to win big. But that is basically the only way you could predict an election a couple years out. You could predict the winner of the party or the candidate who wins, but to predict every single state is very difficult to do a couple years back. Even a few months back is very hard. So this is just, as we keep going, as I work on my model, that is basically what you guys are seeing as of right now. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.